So I was just notified that I might have to go into a nursing home, and pretty confident that Carolyn will be going into a nursing home. Some questions up in the air whether I have to or not. I thought we lived in the United States, but apparently that's not the case. You have to abide by the rules of society, apparently. Things have really changed since I was growing up. I thought that you could live off grid for the rest of your life and no one would bother you. No one would tell you that you're too old, as long as you didn't get into a position where you couldn't take care of yourself anymore. I mean, that kind of makes sense. I mean, if you got a couple marbles rolling around up in your head and you can't even cook for yourself or eat or walk or go to the bathroom, I kind of understand that. But here I am, I'm 51 years old, and yes, I know I look a lot older than 51. I've worked hard in my life. My diet wasn't always the greatest. That's kind of why I'm living off grid, because I wanted to live longer. I wanted to have a stress-free life. I've talked about this before, where I worked myself like a dog. I was working 60, 80, 1 week, 90 hours. I was heading towards a heart attack. Carolyn the same way. There was a holiday, I can't remember which one it was, and everybody had the day off, but I got called in. Had to set up the machines for the day after the holiday. Ended up working more hours that week, a holiday weekend, than I'd ever worked before. I ran my own company in the past, a little consulting firm, traveled all over the Midwest pretty much. I actually did work for Northrop Grumman, one of the military companies. They build, well, this one, they built submarine parts. So I'd done a lot of big work, a lot of stressful work. And so Carolyn and I decided we were gonna slow down. We saved up enough money that we could travel for a while. We got all our debt paid off. We're still debt free. Had a fairly new truck. At the time we decided to take off, it was only 2 years old. We bought it in 2015, so it's 7 years old now. Still has under 100,000 miles. And we traveled the country for a few years. It reduced the stress quite a bit, but there was still a lot of stress involved. And Carolyn was still getting anxiety, and it was just not perfect. We bought this piece of property, $4,200, and we worked really hard for the first year, really hard. We took the camper off the back of the truck, we set it on the ground, and we lived in that for the first, 8 months or so. Got here in March, and by the next January, we had the tiny house built. We had lots of firewood already cut up and split, and so we were able to move in. We had the well running halfway decent by that time. Now, I will admit that first year the firewood was pretty wet. We had a couple chimney fires and it was pretty stressful, but the next year it was a lot better, and this year it's even better yet. So now we have 15 years worth of firewood, and we did it all by hand. I split it with the maul, and Carolyn split it with the little manual log splitter. You can buy them at Harbor Freight or Home Depot. So you can kind of see, I mean, the weeds are growing up a little bit, but you can kind of see just all the way around. We got all this 15 cords. Well, this isn't here 15 cords. We got more down the hill and over here on the other side. We got a lot of firewood. Now people are going to say, oh, it's not going to last that long. It's going to rot before then. Well, I just know for a fact that's not true. Oak firewood lasts forever. As a matter of fact, my grandparents bought a piece of property, had a barn on it, and the barn was built out of oak trees. They just laid the tree down and they stacked it up kind of like a log cabin, and it must have been 100 years old, and it was solid. Of course, they took it down and used it as firewood. It wasn't preserved or anything. It's just, that's how oak is. And of course, there's a lot of hickory in here also, which is even stronger than oak. I do understand that if you live in the Northwest and less hardwoods, they're all hardwood. I mean, not pine and cedar, but if it has leaves, it's not evergreen, it's hardwood. And so there's varying degrees of hardwood, but oak's just pretty solid. If you've ever tried to nail a oak 2x4, oh, that's so much more difficult than a pine one. But this really got us into shape. So now we raise chickens, and life's been pretty easy. No stress involved whatsoever. And I feel myself getting younger all the time. As far as having to cut firewood anymore, I might do some more firewood just to make sure we have plenty to get through the rest of my life. I mean, maybe 3 truckloads a year for another 5 years. I mean, that's not much. That's a cord of firewood each year. That's how much we use in a little tiny house. And then the rest is just pretty simplistic stuff. I mean, Carolyn likes to pilfer around quite a bit. She will clean up the yard. I mean, that's just what she likes to do, stay in shape and exercise. But as far as the stress of living off grid, I think people see this as a much more difficult than what it really is. We produce enough food now that we can pretty much eat without having to go to the grocery store. And so, what does it take? We grow some sunflower seeds in the spring, in summer, and that gives us enough to feed them protein. Carolyn's got a method now where she can, I've talked about this, where she can sprout sunflower seeds. So she can take a 50-pound bag of sunflower seeds and turn it into 250 pounds just by putting them in a tray and sprouting them. And then you give each one of them a handful of protein, sunflower seeds, and then they just take care of themselves. They eat the weeds and everything around here. We don't free range them, but all we have to do is cut it up with the lawnmower, rake it up a little bit, throw it in there, and that feeds them. So their diet's taken care of, and they take care of us. Once a year, I have to butcher, and that's not so bad. I butcher about 4 chickens a day. Well, not even every day. I'll butcher 4 chickens, then we cook them and can them the next day. And then the next day I do it again. So about every other day I butcher chickens, and that takes about a week. And that's really not a lot of work. I mean, you're standing up, I mean, big deal. And now I got the riding lawnmower. You know, taking care of the property just isn't that difficult. I suppose it really is how much you want to put into it. But I feel like I set it up so I could live pretty much self-sustaining with not a lot of effort. When you're living in a tiny house, there is just not that much to do. I mean, once you have the firewood, it's done. Now, I've been thinking about this. Of course, you know, Carolyn and I have a pretty good savings account. We've been thinking about our retirement and all that. And if, for some reason, we don't have enough firewood to get through the rest of my life, then I will be able to call around and somebody will deliver it. It'll be a little pricey. And now, of course, it's not going to be dry, so then we would have to let it dry for a year. So I'd have to plan out a little bit. Okay, I need firewood for next year. But all this is free. I got this app. It's called Free Stuff. Every time I say this, somebody says, what's the name of the app? Free Stuff. Just go to your app store and type in Free Stuff. It monitors Facebook Marketplace. And anytime somebody posts anything about free firewood, I chime in. Okay, I'll take it. And all of it is laid down. Well, sometimes they'll say they want you to cut a tree, but I don't do those. Usually cut them into pieces too, so all you gotta do is throw it in the truck, bring it home and split it. And you can take your time splitting it. Carolyn comes out, spends 15 minutes splitting a few pieces, 8, 9, 10 times a day. And I come out and I'll split, half a dozen logs with them all. And you know that Carolyn's older than me. Carolyn's 61. We're not seeing any signs that she's struggling. She's getting healthier all the time. I told you that we're started a carnivorous diet. And I know there's a lot of people out there that don't agree with that. But of course, there's a lot of people out there that do agree with that. So we started this carnivorous diet, and we're getting healthier all the time, losing weight, gaining muscle mass. I mean, I can see the muscle mass. You know, I had those man boobs that for a while they were getting a little annoying. I didn't like them. But now it's actual muscle, and it's kind of impressive. For an old guy like me, I mean, 51, I mean, sure, people are going to say, oh, you're not that old, but you see what I'm saying. And all the aches and pains have went away. I just learned today that all vegetables have some sort of poison in them. I mean, you think about it. Vegetables are trying to protect themselves from being eaten by things, me, us. Some of these vegetables actually degrade the body over time. So like arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, they're finding that vegetables may be the cause, and that if you get off vegetables, eat meat, your arthritis might go away. Well, my shoulder, I'm pretty sure there was some sort of arthritis going on in there. And I stopped eating carbs and vegetables. We started eating just meat, about 80%. I mean, we still have our snacks on Fridays. And the pains in the shoulder went away. Carolyn's back injury is pretty much gone. I mean, she still claims that her back hurts every now and then, but she doesn't stop. So I don't know how bad it hurts, but I mean, her back used to just lay her up for weeks at a time, but she doesn't have that problem anymore. And then her anxiety. Anxiety was pretty bad. Now, we now know that meat actually gives chemicals to prevent anxiety, and carbohydrates actually have chemicals that cause anxiety. So if you get off the carbohydrates and eat meat, you're getting rid of the cause and actually putting in a prevention. And you can tell a big difference with Carolyn. I mean, she's just night and day from what I remember her being before. So I got a comment the other day that said, I need to start living in reality, that Anybody over 60 years old cannot live off grid, and you're just living in a fantasy world, young man, thinking that you're going to be able to do this for very much longer. And so you better start having a long-term game plan so nobody has to come around taking care of you, putting you in a nursing home. And I replied back, and I said, oh, well, I really do appreciate that information. Maybe I am a little confused by this. And I said, so I'm going to tell Carolyn right now that she can't live off grid anymore because she's 61, so it's over for her. So we'll quit. And I said, thank you. I really do appreciate the information. Wasn't aware of this. Well, I mean, so he had all this arrogance about him. You need to wake up and live in reality. Those kind of snotty comments. He's obviously wrong. If Carolyn is 61 and she's still doing this with really no signs of slowing down anytime soon, maybe he needs to wake up and live in reality and stop saying can't all the time. Well, this morning, I figured he was going to have replied back with more snotty comments, because that's how people are when they're like that. But he deleted it. And I thought, wow, cool, he deleted it. Maybe there's a little wake-up call for him. But I get this a lot. I'm just too old. I can't do that. I can't do that. Well, yeah, you can't do it. Can't, never could. So if you say can't, nope, you can't do it. You've already signed your ticket that says you can't do it. And I'm going to be quite honest with you. That infuriates me when people say you can't do it and then try to pawn it off on me. Well, you can't do it either, like this guy did. I need to wake up and face reality. Well, maybe he should wake up and face reality. Maybe he should stop saying the word can't and say, well, yeah, I could do that. Maybe I could get on a meat diet, see what this guy's talking about. I could try a meat diet for a couple months, see, how bad could that be? Get some eggs, eat some eggs, and see how I feel. If I feel better, maybe I could go out there and do that. But no, it's just easier to say can't. I don't understand what the big deal is eating meat and eggs. Carolyn said, well, like they're junk foods and they're carbohydrates and they just can't get rid of them because it is addictive. I just got an email from a lady, the same lady that helped me figure out the dosings for my antibiotics that I got without prescription. She replied back, she said, Rob, you're a real inspiration. And I really do appreciate when people say that. She said that she wanted to do some yard work and get a little building put up. And she said it took her a year, but she finally got it done. And that's the kind of stories I want to hear is, hey, I'm going to go out and try this thing. And they go out and try that thing, and they get it done, and then go into the next thing. So I think that you can do it. All you got to do is put your mind to it. So if you click this up next box, take the video where I was talking about surviving the winter in a tiny house. So I hope I can inspire you so you can do it. Thanks for watching.